And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios, where with weather like this, a weekend of gambling and golf is just what the doctor ordered. Mr. Randy Wang is at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, I just finished posting the 12 o'clock hour. If you missed it, we have exclusive sound of Holly Mitchell doubling down on her support of George Gascon. And even more shocking than that, we found out Cecily Meyer Cruz used to play with Waylon Jennings.
Don't let your
babies
grow up to be cowboys.
That is a perennial classic. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. You can follow him on Twitter at KausMickey and read him online at KausFiles.com. Mickey Kaus, welcome.
John, thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. Now, Mickey, one of the subjects that gets spoken of a lot regarding the political situation going on, not just in Washington, D.C., but back home in California, is that politics right now is dominated by people who are very old. Whether it is Joe Biden, who's in his early 80s, the incumbent president running for re-election, Donald Trump, who is leading right now in all the Republican primary polls that I have seen. He's in his late 70s and would be in his 80s should he be elected. You've got Nancy Pelosi, who's in her 80s, and Steny Hoyer, who is in his 80s, and Mitch McConnell, who is certainly up there in age. A lot of these people are going to be gone soon, and they're going to be replaced by someone else. Probably someone significantly younger than them. And one of the trends that we've been seeing is we've been seeing that when these older politicians retire, the politics of the area that they represent has typically changed over time. So if you talk about the Democrats, a lot of these people, Nancy Pelosi, I would classify as your pretty standard New Deal liberal. But when she gets replaced, she's not going to be replaced by a New Deal liberal. She's going to be replaced by someone probably further to the left than her, because San Francisco is further to the left today than it was back in the 80s when she first got elected. There was a longtime member of Congress representing the state of Oregon, Earl Blumauer, who just announced that he is going to retire. And one of the sisters of one of the members of the squad, I guess, is the leading candidate to replace him. You're going to see a lot more members of the squad in that Democratic caucus, for example, I predict, as some of these longtime members of Congress retire. And I just see that as causing nothing but problems in that caucus and in Washington. Your thoughts on all of that?
Well, there's certainly going to be a running battle between supporters of Israel and members of the squad and members of the left wing of the Democratic Party. That's clearly a generational thing, and Israel is on the losing end of that. I hope they wise up about that. I'm mystified by why Biden and Pelosi are intimidated by the left wing of the Democratic Party. Now it just doesn't seem to be that strong. The classic case of that is on the border. Why does Biden feel he has to give in to the left in terms of letting basically everybody in the country, when the obvious political move is to not do that? My only analogy is from the world of magazines. At Newsweek, we knew our readers were in the middle of the country and were conservative and didn't agree with us, and that's why we were terrified of them, because we didn't understand them. So the tendency is to pander to them even more. The only hope is that if the squad pulls enough fire alarms, they'll get themselves in trouble, and the voters will turn on them. I mean, fire alarms literally and metaphorically. I mean, the Gascon and the whole woke agenda is in trouble, and also they've lost a lot of their allies in terms of liberal Jews.
What do you think is going to happen politically to liberal Jews over time if they don't stop this?
That's a very good question, and judging from the ones I know, I they will gravitate to the right and maybe become Republican. But remember, Republicans are moving to the left, so I could easily see them comfortable in a Trumpy Republican Party. It's weird. I'm Jewish, and I'm not practicing, but I had never realized that there is a segment of the Jewish community that's always sort of been scared of wasps because they remember that they're scared of like another Hitler growing up in the heartland or something. A completely crazy theory, and I think they're finally getting over that.
Cantor's Deli over on Fairfax was just recently hit with anti-Semitic things that were spray painted all over the walls. I said to myself when we first started getting pictures sent in from listeners, and Daniel Gus, the reporter, was the first one to put it on Twitter, we didn't go on air with it because we just wanted to make sure that it was true. With a lot of these, deep fakes that you see online, where just today there was one where people were claiming that Gavin Newsom fell down a flight of stairs, and you look at the video and you go, wait a minute, that's not Gavin Newsom. So we waited to confirm that in fact happened before we went to air with it. But for a place like Cantor's, in the part of Los Angeles that Cantor's is in, to get hit with something like that, you would assume it would be humongous news in a place like Los Angeles. But we get sent these pictures all the time from different parts of Los Angeles that I'm sure if you look at their voting patterns are very blue, very Democratic strongholds. And it's not like causing the needle to go off the record, which is what I assume would happen if a place like Cantor's got hit the way it did.
I would think so, too. Part of it is the soporific influence of the L.A. Times, where you get the feeling they don't want to publish anything that might stir people up or upset people, at least in the wrong way. That is a very, very delicate story there because it's not like they went into Beverly Hills and spray painted Nathan Alves. That is an area in transition, and there's a huge black merchant presence on Fairfax now, and so you're touching the third rail of black-Jewish relations if you publicize it, and I think that's they're extra cautious about doing that. I mean, we had a little apartment house here that had an anti-Semitic slogan scrawled on the rear of it. And that was national news, okay, because it didn't touch that third rail, and it was a nothing event. I mean, it was in the alley behind the building. No anti-Semite, worth his salt is going to spray paint the back of a building. It was just a random building. I'm very suspicious about it, but that was big news because it was safe.
Yesterday, the daughter of the owner of the L.A. Times, Nika Soon-Chung, went on Twitter and tweeted the following. It's not journalistic malpractice to describe the state of Israel as an apartheid state. This is well established in international law. It's the legal term for unlawful killing, torture, forcible transfer, and denial of basic rights. She also tweeted negative things about the American-Israeli Public Affairs Council, where she went after them as being racist and bigoted and called them an extremist organization that destabilizes U.S. democracy. She clearly has a massive influence over the editorial direction of that newspaper, both on the editorial page and in the news pages. And I don't see how a paper like the L.A. Times can cover a story like this in a straight way when this is the way that ownership is pulling you.
Well, the reports you hear from the L.A. Times is that she has pulled back in terms of prowling the halls and exerting her influence. I don't know if that's true, but that would be the only thing that would prevent this from being a huge story in exactly the way you say, and I would think it's going to pull the paper apart if it really continues, if she really exerts influence. The LA Times people have nowhere else to go because nobody wants to save their paper, but except the guy who owns it now. But that's a huge story. I'm shocked by that. It's very even if it's what she thinks, it's very impolitic of her to say it.
Do you
I
think-
assume the
Go ahead.
the definition of apartheid has been watered down incredibly, so that maybe technically it applies to some Israeli laws still.
Is there anyone you can think of who would be a good owner of that newspaper? And I say that because I was actually excited when Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung bought the paper. I thought, okay, here's a guy who's a doctor. He lives here. He's local. He cares about the civic institutions of Los Angeles. When Tribune owned it, that was like an occupying force. We had for a long time Michael Kinsley as the editorial page editor who didn't even live here. I think he lived in Seattle or someplace like that.
No,
So
he lives here. He lives here.
Oh, does he? Okay. Even when he was the editorial page editor?
Yeah, he lives downtown. He lived in a sterile high-rise apartment that I hated, but he did live there.
But I thought, okay, having someone local own the paper is a good thing. And man, did that turn out to be wrong. Is there anyone you can think of who would be a good owner of that paper?
There are probably quite a few people, although good owners are hard to find. At the New Republic, we had a rich guy named Marty Peretz who we resented at the time. It turns out he was a fantastic owner compared to everybody else. The people I can think of are I wouldn't mind Peter Thiel. He's rich enough. I don't think he'd be interested, but I think he would be like Elon Musk with a much lighter hand, because he's much less of a tyrant and more of a libertarian. So he lives here now, so he's a local person at the moment. I once heard David Geffen rant about the LA Times, and it was very entertaining. I mean, clearly, if Geffen ran the LA Times, there would be a little bit of favoritism involved. His enemies maybe wouldn't do too well on the LA Times, but it would be fun. You'd know where he was coming from, and it would be fun. So those are two people. You want to get as far away from the Eli Broad NPR, we must be boring to be credible line of journalism, and get somebody who appreciates gossip and entertaining journalism. And those two, I think, would fit the bill. I'll try to think of more. But nobody wants to buy a dying asset like the LA Times. And if you want to start a newspaper, why would you start with the LA Times? Wouldn't you start a new one?
Well, that's what I keep hearing, because the LA Times not only loses money, but the real problem, and the one thing that's preventing anyone from making any offers on that paper, is the pension debt. The pension debt for a paper like the LA Times is like the pension debt for a big metropolitan city or a state public employee retirement system. It just causes you to hemorrhage money, and there's no way around it.
Yeah, they overpaid their people and they tended to them so luxuriously. I remember one time an LA Times reporter took me down to their office on Sunday so that they could get the free flu shots. So not only was there an infirmary open on Sunday, that it was giving away free flu shots. I mean, that's the sort of perk that nobody else had. And so they've cut it down, but it's still probably pretty exorbitant. Plus, you get this sort of semi-militant group of reporters who know how to publicize their causes, and who wants to deal with that?
I wouldn't. But the thing with the paper, they punch above their weight, though. Even though the subscriptions keep dwindling down, and even though they make no money, and even though they have all the problems that they have, they still have a readership of influential people. All of the people in office pay attention to them. All of the business people pay attention to them. All of the television and radio news departments use them as a news resource to come up with their own rundowns and their own stories to cover. The LA Times, like all big city newspapers, has a lot of influence, even if they don't make a lot of money.
That's interesting. I'm sort of glad they have influence. I have a lot of friends there, and they're talented people, and I'm glad that the paper's not dead. I paid no attention at all. Maybe it's because I'm not a local news person or a local businessman. But I read a lot of very good LA Times articles, but I read them when they're posted on the web and other curating sites. And I never go to the LA Times to see, hey, what are they doing today? They have some great stuff. They had a great piece about all these boxy modern houses that are going up that I think are hideous. And why the hell is it happening? That's a good trend for them to be on. Have they gained some of the edge from back in the day when Mayor Hahn was split from his wife and they reported it once in paragraph 25 of a story, even though he was like going home to take care of the kids and it was interfering with his mayoral duties? But it was too gossipy, can't have that.
No. Let's shift gears here for a second and talk about the presidential race, because the Democratic Party is trying very hard to make sure that there is no primary, so much so that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. decided to close shop on his campaign for the Democratic primary and run as an independent. You have at least two other candidates that I'm aware of that are running against Joe Biden in the primary. You have Marianne Williamson, who's selling her crystals. And then you have a congressman from Minnesota, Dean Phillips, who just jumped in the race and is very loudly encouraging others to jump in. If, against token opposition, Joe ends up with, let's say, 60% and not 90% against the two of them, what does that mean to Democratic voters?
I think that sends a strong signal, but not a knockout signal. I mean, I'm raising expectations for Gibbons so much that if he doesn't win, I'll consider it a disappointment. I mean, Biden isn't on the ballot there in New Hampshire. He got 8.4% last time he ran. Okay, he had to slink out of the state, embarrassed. They don't like him there. And Phillips is running not as I hate Joe Biden. It's like I am the person who's going to say the emperor has no clothes. We need a new candidate. Much as we may like Joe Biden, he's in danger of losing to Trump. We need some new blood. And everybody who agrees with that, which is a majority of the Democratic Party, might vote for him. So I think he's going to do very well. And then you have this other poll recently that came out that showed RFK doing incredibly well, like 20%, with the other candidates in the 30s. So he's within hailing distance of being up there with the other two. That's just shocking. So I think Biden, I think they're whistling past the graveyard if they think he doesn't face huge obstacles to getting the nomination.
Who do you think is supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now? Because when I think about it, I think, okay, there are three different types of people that jump out at me. People who are anti-vax, because that has been his issue for a long time, really that and the environment, but the environment's taken a backseat to the vaccine talk. Then you have people who just are in love with the Kennedy family. Anything associated with the Kennedys, they love and they will vote for. And I would imagine those people are primarily Democrats. And then you have people who hate both of them, who hate Biden and Trump, and they look at Kennedy as a none-of-the-above option.
I think they're all those three, but there's more. There's Republicans who think he's going to steal from Biden and are financing him to mess up the Democrats. And there are probably some Democrats who think he's going to steal from Trump and are financing Trump. But if he gets money from all those people, he's in Fat City. As far as money goes, I think he probably steals equally from both of them. But I think he's a very appealing guy until you get to the craziness. So I would almost want to have him elected president just to see what all the other members of the Kennedy clan who have viciously denounced him, how they all changed their tune and suddenly rediscover their brother. But I actually don't want him to be president.
Why do you think his family members are all turning on him?
Because there's pressure from the Democratic establishment. There's everybody has to join on the team, and the Kennedys, aren't that powerful. They need the Democrats probably more than the Democrats need them at this point. So I think it's the same reason everybody's pretending Joe Biden's the inevitable nominee, and New Hampshire shouldn't be a primary, and why anybody who endorses this congressman from Minnesota is dead in the party, and you can only do that until it collapses, and then everybody says, okay, we're standing here in the rubble of the Biden candidacy. What do we do now?
Mickey Kaus. You can follow him on Twitter at KausMickey and get him online at KausFiles.com. Mickey Kaus, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks. Same here.
And Randy, let's say you're an elected official and you're getting lots of calls at your office because of remarks we made about George Gascon, and you want to go back and listen to the segment so you can figure out why your office is getting a bunch of calls. That's easy to do.
That's right. You can go to KABC.com, click on podcasts. You go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes that way. You can use the KABC app, search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. Best way to listen live to this station when you're outside the AM radio signal. And you can download all the podcasts, including the first hour of today's show, which is titled Holly Mitchell Doubles Down on George Gascon, where we found George Gascon's campaign Instagram account and a whole bunch of politicians who, according to George Gascon, have endorsed his reelection, including former Long Beach mayor and current Long Beach Congressman Robert Garcia.
And Randy, coming up real soon, we're going on the road.
That's right. Come join us as we broadcast live Friday, November 17th at the brand new Gelson's West LA at West Edge on the corner of Olympic and Bundy. The Gelson's West LA at West Edge is open now. I went down there yesterday to check out the food, beer, and sushi bar that we're going to be broadcasting from. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. Nicest supermarket I've ever been into. You're going to have a great time. We're going to be there Friday, November 17th at the brand new Gelson's West LA at West Edge from noon to 3.
Let's open up the KABC Crime Blotter yet again.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, our next installment takes us to a city that's made the Crime Blotter already once this week, Norwalk.
That's right. Earlier in the week, we told you how for some reason crazy meth heads were stealing fire hydrants for scrap metal in Norwalk. Well, this one might be even crazier than that. There's a creepy guy in a truck who parks outside of schools, videotapes children
Doing the most with his hands.
and apparently there's nothing anybody can do about it.
There is something you can do about it. It's just they're choosing not to.
For more on this insane situation, we've got a report from Fox 11.
Parents say they've contacted law enforcement, public safety, but so far nothing has been done about it. So now they're going public with their concerns.
I think we're at the point where your first call has to be the local news.
Yeah. If you call the cops aren't going to do anything. Not because the cops don't want to do anything. They know if they actually do something about it, Gascon is just going to put it in the trash can.
Honestly, as a mom, I'm shocked it's gone on this long.
Parents in Norwalk say the man sitting in this vehicle is here every day after school, taking photos of children hanging out at New River Park.
They've asked him, why are you here? Why are you filming the children? And he doesn't really give a specific answer. He just says that it's his right.
It's his right to film children?
And he seems pretty confident in that answer.
He sits.
Oh, just you wait.
He sits in his SUV with a blanket, a laptop, and his phone.
That is so unbelievably gross.
Oh, my God.
Usually when the kids are coming out of school, he'll have his laptop pointed facing them, and he just records.
Is he taking pictures of you?
Yeah.
We spoke with a 13-year-old student from New River Elementary who says she's actually seen him doing much more than just taking photos.
Oh, boy.
Here we go.
Witness
Got the
him
drop ready?
Doing the most with his hands.
Witness him masturbated to kids.
Parents.
Okay, you have an actual witness to a crime. The police can't do anything?
How is that not illegal?
Parents say he tries to get the attention of kids by offering different items. One parent snapped this photo of.
This is a sexual predator.
If you don't do something about this, something very bad is going to happen.
I mean, the only thing that takes this out of the complete stereotype of a sexual predator is he doesn't have a van, he has a truck. unlike that guy in San Bernardino County that was going after teens in an A-Team van.
No, this guy sounds like the child molester from Family Guy. The creepy neighbor.
Muscly on Paperboy?
Yeah, that guy.
One parent,
Herbert the pervert.
One parent snapped this photo of a student she claims received a cigar from the man in the vehicle.
How is that not a crime?
You can't give tobacco to kids.
He's followed several women home with children, and it almost seems like it's a scare tactic.
I would hate.
Again, that's not a crime either.
I'm surprised that one of the dads hasn't taken this into his own hands.
For anyone to just ignore this and act like, oh, it's just a guy in a car. No, this is disgusting. This is horrible. And I think more people need to be aware of what's going on.
My biggest concern is for the safety of the parents and the kids. I just don't want them to taking the law into their own hands.
Well, that's what's going to happen when law enforcement isn't doing anything about a sexual predator who is literally preying on children in broad daylight.
If the system breaks down and doesn't do something, someone else will. So just be aware of that. If you fail at your job, someone's going to handle it the way they want to handle it, and you're probably not going to like it.
I know it was just Halloween. There's definitely a leftover Batman costume somewhere, and Batman is the hero we need right now.
Norwalk City Council member Rick Ramirez had these cameras installed outside of a children's recreation center at the park. New River Elementary also placed this tarp on the school fence. They were hoping it would stop the man from coming to this location. But it hasn't.
Why can't something be done about this?
Well, technically, he hasn't broken any laws that...
Did you hear what the 13-year-old said she saw?
That right there, if it's not illegal, I can't imagine that's not illegal. That is all you need to put an end to this.
Well, technically, he hasn't broken any laws that we know of, other than he's been harassing.
I'm not doing anything wrong, and I have the full right to be there.
Oh, they got the interview with the guy. Are you ready for this?
He's dumb enough to talk to the news?
Yes. He's dumb enough to do what he's doing in broad daylight.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
And I don't know what the bell in the background is, but it's painting quite a picture.
Does he work for NPR?
I'm not doing anything wrong, and I have the full right to be there.
We spoke with the man accused of being a creep.
Is this Gina Silva? That might be the best Gina Silva line I've ever heard.
We spoke with the man accused of being a creep.
Well, I think it's beyond accused. I think at this point we can confirm.
We spoke with the man accused of being a creep. Fox 11 News is not revealing his identity because he hasn't been charged with any crime.
I'm not taking pictures of kids.
You're not?
I'm not.
He denies everything he's being accused of and says the concerned parents are just haters.
They're the ones with the problem, huh?
Yes, they have a problem with you pulling up to an elementary school where you don't have any children, filming them with your laptop and doing God knows what under the blankie.
Doing the most with these hands.
That.
Why do you keep going back knowing you're making these parents uncomfortable?
When Rosa Parks wanted to sit in the front of the bus, she could have just sat in the back of the bus.
Is this Chomo comparing himself to Rosa Parks?
I think he is.
When Rosa Parks wanted to sit in the front of the bus, she could have just sat in the back of the bus and not have to deal with the issues. Cesar Chavez could have accepted.
Now he's comparing himself to Cesar Chavez.
What an ego.
Could have accepted the low wages, not complain, be happy with what he got. But no, they stood up because they knew they were right, and I'm standing up for myself because I know I'm right.
He has the right to pull up to an elementary school and
doing the most with his hands
in front of children while filming them.
I really can't believe what I'm hearing.
We are at a Fran Drescher level of not being able to believe this story, but it's true.
I cannot believe it, quite frankly.
Again, we're not identifying this man because he has not been charged with any crime. He insists what he's doing, it's his right, even if it makes those parents uncomfortable. He tells us he's not going to stop. Alex, Christine?
Okay, there's got to be some part of this story that we're missing.
I'm so confused.
I don't know what the proper term is to use, but is this guy slow? And I don't mean just dim. I mean like something wrong with him, with his chromosomes or something.
Well, he seemed to be able to quote Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez pretty quickly.
Yeah, not in the proper context, though.
That is not what Rosa Parks was advocating for, at least with all the history that I've ever read.
Yes. I don't remember her refusing to sit at the back of the bus so perverts can leer at children and take pictures of them outside of a school.
I'm sure that now a light has been shown on this insane story in Norwalk. We're going to find out more in the next few days. And maybe, just maybe, the public pressure will get the officials in the city of Norwalk to actually do something about it.
Time will tell. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Jason writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com in relation to the Norwalk creep. It's stories like this that most definitely bring about a Batman situation. Make vigilantism great again.
Well, if the cops don't take care of the problem, someone else will. That's just how these things work. That's why you can't have the breakdown of society where everyone just accepts it, because not everyone will accept it. At some point, someone's not going to accept it, and they're going to handle it their way, which may not be your way, which is why you should handle it when you first find out about it. All right, that's going to do it for us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at noon for another live and local edition of The John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's 2:48. Let's take a look at the roads.